What's up, guys? Today we're going to be installing the Broaddict Roof Rack on top of the Bronco. So let's go ahead and get started showing the instructions and a little tutorial of all our stuff. So Broaddict sent me a roof rack kit to basically test out for them and give a little bit of a review. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. I've laid out all the parts here. We got a little bit of hardware over there. The instructions appear to be pretty good. I'll know a little bit more once I start getting into it, but you know, we got numbered pages front and back. They list out what you need as far as tools go, and some pretty good, images for the most part. Not a whole lot of words, mostly images. So those are nice when they're detailed. So we'll see how this all kind of plays out. And then this is, I think, for the giant rails. And then these are for the crossbars. So we have a front and a rear crossbar as well. So, and these are just single pages for those. So let's get started. One thing I want to note with the instructions is this is for 2-door models and 4-door. You can kind of see how they lay. It looks like the 2-door goes all the way across the hardtop, whereas the 4-door kind of just hits that first mark right over here. So on the back of the hardtop, we have this and then this rear one. Looks like it's just gonna hit that one. And then we get 2 rails that kind of just go right up front. So just wanted to make note of that. So the first thing we're gonna do is basically, these have a little inner part to it, and they go on the front section there of the Bronco. So we're gonna pull those inner parts out, and we're gonna take them and basically slot them in here. These holes should line up for you to give you an indicator of where you're at on which side. And then with these, this top comes off, and then these are gonna go like this one. These holes don't line up with these. Basically, you're gonna do these little inserts right here, and those will line up with those. So, well, once you get it right. Got ahead of myself on the instructions a little bit. Technically, the first step is to remove these plastic caps. They're a little tricky to do with one hand, but... And then these, I believe, are gonna be 10 millimeter. We'll do that on both sides. All right, once you remove them, it should look like this. The instructions weren't completely clear. There's a little black plastic piece that sits in here. It looks like on the image you would remove that as well. Okay, jumped the gun a little bit, but basically we're gonna take these big pieces and the rail, and we're gonna put it up onto this first one, kind of make sure they sit all right. And then the next step is putting on those front pieces and attaching it to the covers we just pulled off. So let's see how that looks. One thing to note when we are attaching the back pieces is we're gonna use the short T30 Torx bolts to secure those down as per the instructions. The back had no torque specs. The front looks like it should be about 10.5 Newton meters. I don't have a torque wrench that goes that low, so we'll just have to kind of get them on there good. It looks like we need a 10 millimeter for that as well. I will say that these back pieces that go on here feel pretty durable. They got a nice little rubber pad here that, hopefully protects your hardtop, goes all the way to the top. And so that little hook is gonna go right in that little notch. And they feel good. So it should just kind of lay up there like so. Kind of hooks under there and just kind of sits over this hump on the hardtop. And that's how that should sit. Once you get your top on there, or this little piece, and then the rail, you can secure it down with those little bolts that I showed earlier. And then for the front, basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this piece and we're gonna take these foam pads, there's 4 of them, and you're gonna take one and put it on each side here and kind of into the crevice to cover this upper piece and this lower piece so it protects the paint. You do that on both sides, so that'll take 2. And then the other one that we have will also take 2. So since the instructions don't really make it clear on which orientation this should go, there's only one sticky side. And you're either gonna slide it straight up and in there, or you could rotate it outward so it sticks out and looks like that. What you're gonna do is do it vertically because it fills the gap that basically exists from removing the other caps. So make sure you do them vertically. So when you're all said and done, they should look pretty much like this. Okay, for step number 4, securing those front little heads that we just put the foam pads on. Looks like we're gonna put 2 of these guys right where those original bolts are that we took off with the painted caps, or sorry, the nuts. And then we're also gonna take a single one of the short T30 hex bolts, and we're gonna put that, those are the same ones we secured the back section with, and we're gonna take one and we're gonna put it in that very front hole, which I'm guessing is going to be perhaps this guy. Let's see when we get up there. For these little guys, they're just an Allen head, which should be provided in the kit. All right, this is what it looks like when you kind of get it loosely coupled together. I have one fastener in there, the other hole is empty, and then I didn't put anything up here because I wanted to leave this so it can move around. When I started cinching this one up, this whole thing started to kind of find itself, so to speak, and kind of cinch itself down and sit properly. And then that's just kind of loosely hanging back there where, you know, it can be moved forward, backwards, whatever we need. I would just be very careful with moving it quickly or too much, since the underhook that kind of clips into the hardtop there isn't protected by rubber, and you don't want to scratch or, you know, mess up kind of the underside here of your hardtop. So I'm gonna go ahead and fasten the rest of these down, and I'll show what it looks like after. So this is what it looks like when it's fully cinched down. There are little spacers kind of in here, so that's why you see a gap. And then we cinch down our one, and then our other 2, and it's on there pretty good. And if you laid your foam pieces sideways like this instead of vertical, you'd see that this wouldn't fit. It would kind of basically fill out, and it just wouldn't fit right. It wouldn't look right either. So that's kind of the reasoning behind that. And then this one's left open for when we put the cover over this. You cinch it down here, and I believe you're using this one. I'll go over that in the next steps. And as part of step 4, like I was saying, you basically take that big piece, and then we're using the number 4s, which are going to be the 4 medium-sized, and then we have 2 longer ones. So we're gonna use 2 of these to cinch down that cover piece, and let's see what that looks like. We have our cover piece, and basically there's our holes, and it should kind of just fit like so. I don't know if there's a specific way to get this in. Looks like there's these grooves, and you kind of, there we go, kind of fit it in that way, and then maybe see if those line up. Look like they do. And then from there, we just kind of, looks like it might be off a little bit. I have to play around with it, get it nice and tight. And it's hard to do with one hand here. But these are gonna be the same T30 Torx bits. And then no torque specs that I saw, so just get them snug, don't overdo it. And then we'll do the same for the other side. This is what it looks like for basically the first part, the first set of instructions. So you leave this back section open for the rear crossbar, and then, you know, pretty much we're gonna go ahead and start installing the rear crossbar since the front is now in place. These are still loose, but that first set of instructions, and I'll go over there real quick, kind of shows, it's a little confusing. Since we did page, 2 of 4, and we just cinched these down, this is page 1, it just goes to page 3, and if you'll notice, we go from step 4, maybe 5, I don't know, to step 6. And in step 6, we're putting on these covers, but the rear crossbar is already in place. So, by deductive reasoning, we need to put in the rear crossbar. So there's no mention of that in any of these instructions. So that could be a little confusing, but piecing it together, we have this hardware kit. It's got 4 of these guys and then 1 Allen. So we're gonna go ahead and install that next. This bag of hardware goes for the middle 2 crossbars. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. And I know I already showed the instructions, but I just want to make notes. These B's are these right here, and it's a T30, and it's also going to be 12 Newton meters, 9 foot-pounds. They have arrows on the crossbars saying which way is front, so that should help that. Once we lay our crossbar in there, we're basically just securing down those 2 bolts or 2 holes with the 2 bolts on either side. I do want to note here that the toughest part is pretty much getting that one in there, since it's just a nice straight through, and you kind of have to drop it in. And I put it on the Allen and tried to basically drop it in. It worked out, it worked for me. But I could see how that might be frustrating. If you dropped it, you know, you had this side cinched down and you're working on the other, and you dropped it and it like happened to roll for whatever reason in here. I could see that being maybe slightly problematic. Okay, so some lessons learned from this whole thing. Loosely install your bolts so you can still slide this. Do not put this into the channel. Sit it kind of just on top. And then that way that side should work and line up. Okay, one issue I'm running into that could be a game breaker, a deal breaker basically, is once you get that side on and you try to fit the other side in, the holes are close, but don't completely line up. So it makes it extremely difficult. And if you run into this, you can maybe solve it by pulling this bar back a little bit. But I mean, it's tough. So we'll try our best to get these in and continue on. Okay, now that we got the rear crossbar on, we're gonna go ahead and put the middle ones on. So slightly confused by the instructions here. It shows 4 of these, and this is what came in the pack. So not sure which ones to use exactly, but we'll go ahead and forge ahead and see what we got here. So it looks pretty simple. Basically, you're just putting on these, those pieces, just sliding them on, and then we're just kind of lining them up with the holes that exist already on the crossbars. Okay, it makes a lot more sense now. The instructions don't show that you actually have to attach those ends with some hardware. Maybe you don't. They provide it. I'm assuming it's going to be these guys, and then these longer ones are what secures it to the actual roof rack rail. We'll see if that gets in the way. I'll give it a shot. All right, after you assemble the feet on it, I guess, I left those kind of loose just so they can, you know, slide into place and we can move them. It looks like there's enough room under here. You can get the Allen in to actually tighten them up once they're in. And then you will use those washer ones. It looks like they fit the best. And then as far as across the way, you know, you're not gonna have your bolt head slip through those. So line them up and then pretty much secure them in. And I'll show what that looks like once it's done. So the install of the crossbars went really simple, actually. It's pretty straightforward. Definitely leaving the bottom sections loose was a good idea. You might not even really need to put those in, to be honest. I think those will secure it pretty good. And I mean, they're in there pretty tight from the get-go once you kind of lay them in and bolt them down. It was a real pain in the butt trying to get an Allen under there and seeing and feeling and then tightening them up. So maybe that's why they weren't in the instructions. They're not absolutely necessary. I could see if you don't tighten them down, these kind of vibrating over time and them coming loose and creating, you know, maybe a little bit of a rattle noise. So just keep that in mind if you do put them in. So the next steps are pretty much put these caps on and we're done. So I'll go ahead and show that next. So back to the instructions. Step 6 says we're going to use number 2, which should be your remaining 2 long T30 Torx bits or Torx bolts, and we're going to tighten those down to 8 Newton meters or 6 foot-pounds. Basically stick those in. Then we have these little plastic tabs that kind of go over the openings, and it seems like we turn this until there's a click. And final instructions is to put those pieces in there. This is what the caps look like when they're on. Fit and finish is pretty decent. Can't complain too much. It looks good on both sides. And then the final step is going to be basically tightening down this little, the little clamp down there to kind of hold it into the hardtop. This guy is going to be an 8 millimeter. So tighten that down and then pop these back in and you are done. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Hope you liked the install video. Comment if I left anything vague about the whole process. Tried to detail it as best as I could. So if something doesn't make sense, please, leave a comment and I'll try to answer it as best as I can. But as you can see, looks pretty good. Overall, pretty happy with the install. So thanks again and have a good one.